If I can, board members, before we begin the meeting, I just want to let everybody know that the board president has stepped back from his position as board president into his role as a board member, and as a result, pursuant to the rules, the vice president of the board takes over as acting chair. And so we will convene the meeting with the acting chair slash vice president in the chair role, and we'll move from there. We have one extra order of business, which will be the election of an officer or officers, depending on how things go, before we go into executive session. All right? Okay.
I call the meeting to order. Can we please stand and pledge the flag?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Bloom,
Here.
Mr. Callahan,
Here.
Mr. Esposito,
Here.
Mr. Fernandez,
Here.
Mrs. Napolitano,
Here.
Mrs. Pabon,
Here.
Ms. Pylock,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Okay, can everybody hear me? All right, we will now take
Mike, move the
nominations.
microphone a little bit closer, please.
We'll now take nominations for the office of president.
I will put forth a motion to elect Lucy Bloom as the president.
I'll second it.
There's been a nomination and a second. Can we take a roll?
Are there any other nominations?
Oh, I'm sorry, any other nominations? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ms. Hill, if you could just take a roll call vote, please, on the office of president for the nomination of Lucy Bloom.
Okay, Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mrs. Napolitano,
Yes.
Mrs. Pabon,
Yes.
Ms. Pylock,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
It's a long pause.
True to form, Patrick, true to form. Thank you, everybody. I'm a little overwhelmed, but that's okay. We now need to take nominations for the office of vice president.
I'd like to nominate Daniel Pylock.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Eloy Fernandez.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Yeah, get that down.
Who was the second, Jack was the second?
Allison was second on you.
Allison was second?
It's not, you're all very respectful to each other with the seconds, just so you know, nominations are not, seconds are not required, just so, it doesn't matter. But it's
it's
good,
a
it's
thing-
nice
it's
to,
a
it's
thing
nice to
here,
do.
Tom.
Yes, okay, I'll go with it. All right, so there's two nominations.
Any other nominations?
And is there a motion to close nominations?
Motion to close nominations, please.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
So now, if I could just give some quick legal advice to this board on this, since we have two nominees for the office of vice president, if you could vote by last name as opposed to yes or no when your name is called by Ms. Hill, so the names would be either Pylock or Fernandez, in the order, whichever one, but please choose one as you're voting and as your name is called.
Okay, Mrs. Bloom,
Pylock.
Mr. Callahan,
Pylock.
Mr. Esposito,
Pilot.
Mr. Fernandez,
I'll abstain.
Mrs. Napolitano,
Pylock.
Mrs. Pabon,
Fernandez.
Ms. Pylock,
Pylock.
Mr. Smith,
Pylock.
and Mr. Walsh.
Pylock.
Okay,
Okay. It looks like we have a vice president. Congratulations, Danielle. Thank you, everyone. We need to move into closed session at this point.
Yep, so we need a motion and.
We need a motion?
Second.
Okay.
Or do I?
Oh.
Do I do it first? Now I don't remember.
Doesn't matter, whatever the motion second is, will be for whatever Aaron's about to read.
Okay, so that was motion from Allison, I'm sorry, Mrs. Napolitano. and Ms.
Second.
Was that Mr. Walsh or Mr.
Mr.
Callahan?
Walsh.
Okay,
That's
Now you
sorry.
can read it.
Yeah, they
and
sound the
then-
same.
And then you can say it.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, and matters falling under attorney-client privilege. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such times the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mrs. Napolitano?
Yes.
Mrs. Pabon?
Yes.
Ms. Pylock?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Guys, there's food in there, in the lounge. We only really have one topic to discuss. We'll save that to the very end, so